Okay. Lewis, you're up. Woo! Woo! Yeah! Whoa, yeah!
Hello, and welcome to this evening in which the two wonderful poets, Roberto Harrison and Julian Brolaski, will read for us. I'll start by introducing Roberto. Roberto Harrison's poetry books include Tropical Long Exists, Tropical Long Mythologia Panamena, Iavisa, Bridge of the World, Culebra, Bicycle, Counter Demons, Os, as well as many chapbooks. He was the Milwaukee Poet Laureate from 2017 to 19, is also a visual artist. Roberto's work is super meaningful to me in the ways that it dreams other metaphysical planes that constitute potential futures. It gives me so much pleasure to welcome Roberto to read.
Woo! Thank you, Lewis. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Lucas. I'm really excited to be a part of this. Can you see me okay and everything?
Yes.
I did this magazine back in the early 90s, Croton Bug, and I published Edgar in it. This is back in 1994. There's some small writing you probably can't see very easily. But there's Edgar in 1994 in Milwaukee and Croton Bug, between Franz Kamen and Kimberly Lyons. And so I moved to Milwaukee in 1991, and in 93 or so, I think, Woodland Pattern asked me to invite anybody I wanted from around the country to give a talk or give a show or a reading. And Edgar was the first person I chose, so I'm especially happy that Edgar's a part of this show. And it's kind of hard to believe that was 30 years ago. So I'm just going to read a few poems. All the ones who know are gone. It was like the explosive electronics back when the first breath cut into the light to become an infinitely wide circle, or by when the animals aligned their civil plans to endure past the detail, when most would assume that their freedoms were blank or solid in the catalog of desertion, more ruined than the invisible music, but cold and hot beyond the two. When each of us are night, the tree cat swims past its wings to the star cluster door. With all the water behind it, we motion to the above attachment as one plays beyond seven. And the steam band protects the heart's early rooster. Even the Baphomet stars with the occluding climate, as our window to the ink of the Embera stalls into the homeless patch, an affront to the proliferating signs that retain a husk by the split egg dream. They help me in the star lust filled with a wandering host, given that my prehistoric origins fall into this moment at each intersection. And as networks, the invisible fruits return to the canyon's western accretions, to the forced meteor that one holds to relay into a partition's mind, held to the toggling arrows. It's not as if all those silent people on the other side of the computer are glaring as we speak, but the effect is the same. Cut off the neutral networks of the soaring cusp of intelligent inertias, or why the past inhabits the future even if it's beyond words. What is meant by that book is that the greeting is endless, and spirals down over the torso by two hands starting at the crown of the head. That was the greeting on the archaic plains. And the common names are there that call me from El Mexico Profundo. But why then go to the Zohar if it's beyond writing? But no, the codices and El Quipo and all those other motions that call the endless transformations of Achafachito. Is there anyone to speak to there? The intimate shell? There is here in the morning. I speak the way I am, beyond the page. The office of my terror is silent. I speak to you in that place where we are a knot of micro memories. But let me finish as I have the anti-contusion to impart to you, which only begins and ends there. Helplessness is not the only state in confronting the ash. We must be still in the music, even if the egg breaks. Not a single word I utter is in that place. My chances to be among you are with the feed. I have the mud. Please speak to me now that Easter is coming, as all who know are gone and will rise, starting from Mabilla, and then each mound, and then each animal. That's where we sleep. That's where we start again. That's us in extreme wakefulness, watching the movies of our dreams and feeling our sleeping body like a puppet. We enter the rings of terror, go much, much deeper, and then awaken to the corn. Silence screams. Stay quiet in the night. Will the weapons refuse the stems of your shadow and dissolve in the past repeated by day and by the head path arrived at with a single foot to speak? But quiet is what the flowers form for the landscape removed from the knife and pulled to escape the sobbing result of the sand. Stay quiet as a loudness escapes the imposing murder sail, as the throbbing tongues line up to the blood, as the noise becomes their attention in the next program. I hate the code. And whether we speak as the influence of water does not help the portrayals of the star hit for seeing the night in silence, where one makes 7 by the unreported scene as the count and the sound belong to the sea. Word pictures. I see live things escape the oceans of my pen as they settle in the dust to cut into the night and heave our safari to the home in the home of the sea. As the insects complete the plans in their attentions, as a simplex of 4 makes a simplex of 14, as 2 7s scar the first 7 to war with the ground. They were night by the male as a corpse, bred their seams to return the intent of the tapers, and resume what the hunt by the human makes animals small. But to grow with the campus of feet, mark the sea with the cannibal wound on the path, as a bison marks skies in the earth, as a dark and she marks us with nets made to hunt in the eyes, as a frozen protection proceeds. But give me your death in a complex of forms as I insect the force of our womb and arrive to the plants as they bleed. And I wash out my blood with the fire as I hold you in light that the friends of the line resume with a heart of the death by the memory saved to the feet of the sea. I am the wound of the earth. I am made of our wandering. Interior climate. Where does the shadow strip, or how does the trickster stone align its own family to the horse as more radios short the documents? Has one the impression that the number marks each face as the option to hold a meteor shower to the undone. It does not intercept the drone in the signs, or as I say, the two doors remove their flickering starts as the approaching disease marks a simple case of the earth with this intermediate residence, because then the unswerving option of the drawing does its release to the finish as an improvement of the sand. It does not protect or reform the network of being. From the allure of the animal windows, as they become less to see the interiors, the body is now in 17 parts. It is distributed inside the outlets and objects of a speaking terrain, but the speaking does not originate with the voice there as its breathing grows from the burning table toward one that hosts the extended numbers of the words, each of their slurping fumes of the approach to the sea, each privacy operator that does not intend even the slightest motion of the grasses on the plains. Each of them sees with the magnet what the implosion says to the door to become the night, cut as comfort, as a slaughtering refuge becomes its own answer, and as they reveal, the clouds increase their wandering. These motions return the reluctant elevations of the ground to the lack of breathing in the door made to open. Processions move as a harvesting product of the moon, light. Only the sea remains. Ladder the light. Once with the wind, my carapace rattles the signs of a waking approach to the word. A fluid form stacks its windows as a serpent makes bread. The answer to the interior prompt of the fires. Our heads remove the exits by the way of the wind as the vacancies of the host line resend to our leaves in the spring. When the intermediate becomes more open to travel, when the foundation of the network does not resuscitate the skipping report of the unraveled, our face communion of the force of the pages reveals and returns the evolutions by the dissolving car as the small steps replace and strip out the foam in the surface water. But even if the replacement solar plexus leaks its mind by the ashes, by the way the alone of the water returns its own wound, I remain the last humanoid stone to respond. Make me another entrance where the inanimate also participates in the life of Mobilla, wearing away the ritual of clothes by the yogic fires of the Saloma legions. We swell the revealed world of Bison upon you to return the goats to their polar lamb and spin out the songs of the ferns, the instant radio messages that we harvest to undo electronic landscape connections as I push out the spherical bodies and the heart in 11 other places, as we also must be life, shredded with others. I am a casualty in the last war of the wind. I once belonged to the wires, and I moved the others to join me in the first ocean of death. The center is cut by yesterday's tapers as they stretch to pull the leaves from the city where I waved the others on. Someone launches the sticks of the night as they pile themselves up for the fire. Peyote songs light up the sound, fused with the moon and the signals from the earth offered through the door. The stones ask what atrium they make and which animals hold us in life. I find no way to reject the sun. I follow the color of the street to unravel my wide-dimensional host and open the wound of the light again. The animals cannot find me among the vacancies. In our fourth life, a father is destroyed by the fear of the trees, and in the seventh life, I do not stand for myself in meaning, except as a wandering exit. If there is a way to grow past the mountain, then I must find the line past the imposter. As they end cruelties in the heat, my voice unravels like the grasses, and only the willows know if friendship brings me another origin. But these languages are remote, and the ways of this part of the earth are muddy, and the sky arrives only to speak in the numbers of my infestation, through the roots of my decrepit wilderness, in a silence that will not count. Sent in Mobilian jargon via isthmuses. Hosts in the sky make paths to the carriers. They fold to return to the oceans in dust by the face. I remember to walk and reveal every story in wind under night, packets of light and the sounds of the shells. Keep up as a one of a presence will stare through the window of two every day. That was our training for now with the screens. And that was the broken outside that has grown in the sea, marked for a country of signs. Each song does not stop at the cut for the race, and each does not know their own neck. They yell out for salvation and move to belong to the corn. But the wind is the same as a river through seasons read close by return. Whenever the segments of life now entomb our thick webs for the answer, as they find one to touch and be soft for the war. Our beacons call ice to remain in the underground, oceans to find us a way to endure. Each pulse will not remember the time of the shadow. Each limb calls itself from the heart of the other to claim an intention for dust and the sea. But Carib explosions reveal what the night has to offer survivors as each of its sparks start a fire to begin without knees. Even as starlight will never remember our answers to the singular mouth of beginning. Even as wars become lost to the trees and their talk underground makes us bleed. Our beliefs are not finished from starting and falling anew. But the documents show that there was a balance to books, but that law had removed this from us. In the color of twilight, bled like the animals gone. Every night I become like the ceiling of exits and call us the grandmother song. We sink then to freeze like each catalog marked with an entry of ancient intention and surface for standing to make with the door. For the entry of love, all my relations are gone and become like the spirit of Crazy Horse pierced through my side. I was a they as a tech made to wander Mabilla, and I was a zero to see like the one to return to the night. Mabilla just wanders in coats, every wound with attachment, and silence as mounds remain witness as song and survivance. But the world stays the same for the blind, and Mabilla has moved to the isthmus inside, as we're mobile and wandering go for the Mongol invaders, and as the empires will rise and collapse for Tecumseh, made dust for the Caribs through raids on the sea. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lewis.
Thank you so much, Roberto. That was so amazing. Yeah, that was beautiful. It felt like at first like being in Waves of a Dream to me, or something like that, and then moved. Yeah, moved into this other space. Yeah. I want to introduce Julian now. Julian Talamantez Brolaski is a poet and country singer, the author of Mongrelitude from Wave Books, Advice for Lovers, and Gowanus, Atropolis. Their first full-length album is coming out this summer. Julian's poetry was recently included in When the Light of the World Was Subdued. Our songs came through a Norton anthology of Native Nations poetry, and we want it all, an anthology of radical trans poetics. Julian's language, or my sense of it is, it's a sort of condensory, but not a spare condensory in any way, an excessive condensory. There's this work in it of a sense of re-encoding the past, or re-encoding the encoded past, or something that rises in it. And it's such a pleasure to have Julian here in this room to read. Yeah, welcome, Julian.
Thank you, Roberta. That was so beautiful. I hear you speaking straight from your heart. Thank you for that beautiful reading. To the poets who never stopped rhyming. In my honeyed state, love's tercets formed perpetually, a self-willed meadow where deer would play. Happiness, happenstance, the alchemization of my loneliness into sweet my birds, sweet my saplings, seekers of a bygone solitude. Where the river bends flowed I, where the spittle and the broken leaves float by, and colored shadows shimmer in water with an uneven portrait of the stolid trees, but more compelling than the trees because I could dive into it with my cap uplifted to the sun. I knew I should have silk some beams before I'm done. Bitole, rangers bussing in the grass with darting tongues and heaving hearts. To the poets who never stopped rhyming, do I dedicate my arts. Star Pocket. This one is going into the catalog for this show. And I just want to also thank Lucas for curating this show at okno.one. Suffer, Dance, Stand, Native Survival. And I'm honored to have my poems being echoed in the presence of Edgar Heap of Birds and Douglas Miles and Warren Realrider. So this is called Star Pocket. Ornament of the nebulon on which I rest my wrist. Pocket of stars, outside the dream, but still dreaming. I was being kissed by one I love, but who in real life doesn't love me. Dream lover, a way to feel high. I looked up how to get drunk without drinking. It talked about soaking a tampon in booze. Parmanji said, get intoxicated with God. I make my prayer and it's not a sacrifice. Impulse to order things, to check the stats of things, tick to click on the box, lachrymose, bargain my saneness, my senescence for a handful of likes. And lo did I, this very hour, walk down a street called Columbus to a real river at Shakamaksin, the site of a treaty where we said we would live in love with one another as long as the creeks should flow. Pilgrim's promise, the promise of a lover. And like the promises of historical lovers, one that was writ on water. Dream lover goes to waste, creeks undergrounded into sewers. For one who knows how to ripen a fruit, this is for the poet David Larson. When the audacity of the seen world eclipses the glory of the love of God, then do my sleeves grow long. A glowing pear amidst my rubric, green and crimson, clover and vermilion, But how does the pear taste? The angel wants to know. Unctuous, buttery even, soft on the tongue like sugared sand. How that we cognize our surrounds, joy and pestilence, rats and clouds. What is it that makes a meadow? I mean, what halts the trees in place? When the mentalist starts to believe in their own tricks, their own lies, they call it shut-eye. What is this atmosphere about my head? And what gilded forms unfold themselves to empty out their secrets for the daisy in my cap? Wave of murmuration. That sparrows and starlings are here at all is owed to one hapless Shakespeare enthusiast, or so the myth goes. And the sparrows went forth and did their thing, and the starlings installed themselves in the eaves of the Natural History Museum. That part is true. I'll show you how to tell a purple martin from a starling, a cowbird from a grackle at the 1100th hour, when as like a hawk, you are dazzled by their murmurations. Then you can tell me my fortune. The rain in Spain, the COVID I may have gotten in Spain when I limped with my Spanish cane along the cobblestones of Marbella, with its bitter, gorgeous oranges and its numerous mafias, on the arm of my butch friend, the boat captain, the one who holds it steady for me with a bass clef tattooed on her arm like guiding the groove of my step. A real Johnny Cash in the Tennessee 2 feel. And I feel like we're two elephants with trunks entwined, eating sardines and berenjenas, tea for tea. It's not shocking what love can do. Weather fooling the forsythias into bloom. From Andalusia to California. Sometimes a thing that makes a good story is its holes. Blessed are the cracks, Groucho Marx said, for they shall let in the light. Like a heron who avoids casting a shadow on its prey. The trick is to take off your glasses and stand with your face to the sun. Flock of stars. Should I be a shepherd, eyeing my flock of stars? Riding backward on the train through unromantic Newark to a garden in New York, where I'd meet my friends, poets, the ones who knew what nectar tasted like. And once they had taken the nectar into their bodies, well, others began to seek them out, longing for that sweetness on their tongue. They leaned against a wall of flowers and wore caps emblazoned with a single blue rose. Bees swirled lazily but purposefully about. I'm accurate to my surrounds, they sang. I can swim in a drop of dew. I can make a flower spurt from my finger. Rock in a snowball, jelly in a donut. I heard a revelator say, there's gold in the head of the bear. My aspect is all simplistic. The tools of poetry. This has an epigraph from Joy Harjo. You might as well make friends with your tools. Walking by the river, thinking of that tool, I couldn't cry. The cherry blossoms were opening, and on the verge of opening, the trash in the waterfall still couldn't cry. And the tampon that had bloomed in the wet water still couldn't. Never leave the premises, said Rumi on Being in the poem. on being in the room of the poem. I know the pun was cheap. They found a new star today in a region of warped space, and they gave it an English name, Arundel. Down by the river, though I'd given it a wide berth, a goose hissed at me. I saw its pink tongue, swallows dipping along the Schuylkill, and a red-winged blackbird streamed through the cherry trees. There was trash and shit everywhere, and the glory and the beauty and the smashed youngling bottles and the exhaust I breathed. And could I have the discernment to realize which were my tools and which my hindrances? Poetry in the broke glass, poetry in the water, which was an imperfect mirror, the way that milk is in the butter. Songs of the Old World. The seed of this poem is a line or fragment from Roberto, actually, that I heard him say in his last reading, nectar of knowing the song. Songs of the Old World. I have encircled you with the forces drawn with feathers, gently touching the arm of the wind in the air around you. I have circumdrawn you. I draw you. Slap of the old world haunting this one, ephemeral in its stakes. Pregenerate woodland, bereft of stars, bounded through with a black and yellow rope. In the old world and in the old songs, playing where I properly provided with a sax and a box to stomp on. Who wants to come through? I asked inside the hollow of the channel of my spine. The Diyin are as good as you. Sing, holy being, when that I was a light upon the road, with a face like a star and a form like shining icicles. It's hard to tell the singer from the song. The sun on the water seemed to be moving in a spiral with just a peak of the creek channeling through. You got this life to live. What are you going to do? Take dictation from God, the poet said. Pretty much lays about and eat chips. It must be my disposition out of green stuff woven. It's hard to tell the singer from the song. The sun on the water seemed to be moving in a spiral with just a peak of the creek channeling through. You got this life to live. What are you going to do? Take dictation from God, the poet said. Pretty much lays about and eat chips. It must be my disposition out of green stuff woven. The English queen and the Indian boy. From what I can understand, a star crossed with a mycelial structure, crossed with a bee, speaks to me in the form of a cloud dripping rain. And in its patter, I discern the words and the pattern of the drops. But I have already seen this hand I hold before me. I mean, this hand, making the cerulean vermilion. I mean, making the blue one red. And oh, I was red to the core. In the world of the mushrooms, one could see me without varnish. Titania with one syllable removed. The English queen or the Indian boy, which was it was not the question. I was clocked. No hormones could save me. No knife could unearth me. I sang with the worms. No new song under the sun. The greatest messiness, humbled in the hard rain, soaked through to the shoe, wetted to the toes. Christ, the hard rain down can rain. It was all too obvious to be believed. It had all already been written. Blue clouds, blue tears rolling down my face. It was all how it had already been drawn or painted in the schools of art. I rolled the dustings of the eraser into a smutty pink ball and ate it. What could those gone letters tell me? And dropped the wore out battery into my tea. What power, what DE, clock of ages, toll for the spider, toll for thee, looking at its hand in a wilderment of arrows shot at random toward the April sun. What's the matter, son? Afraid of the luminous darkness? Behold my breast and my scars, bare-chested, impervious to your light, and what to your exit then, tugging at the curtain's rope, and with all that ink on your fingers, stultified, finally apprehended, obvious as a cowbell. When it bend its knee to pray, when it bend its knee to pray and says, what did you think? And what did you think? And I've been here before, and I was standing here before, and I've been standing at your attention all along, and I've been kneeling here at your attention, been standing and kneeling at your attention, and I've been standing and kneeling unbeknownst to your attention all along, like that light you thought was the light of a house. Been there all along. It's been here this whole time, joking with you. And as you smoked, it too blew out a puff of smoke. And like the ochre mesas in the sunset, crouching like lions, been here all along, been here all along, been there all along, like when it bend its knee to pray, and when it bend its knee to pray, and when its song is in its throat, and when its heart is in its knee, when its heart is in its knee, and when its song is in its throat. Liquid amber. This is for the poet Cedar Saigo. Haply did I delay the ruminants of a room embossed with, let's just say it, stars. Flit of your cup, fluke of its pretext to milk, oaten. The cable for the mic should be short to enround the sound, like dew shimmying on a pine needle, or a blue whale whose root could be called wanton or even vain, gregarious. There are certain spices that live in the mountain. We don't speak of them. And certain roads that eat their own dust happily. The rules of the game. We agree to be bound by the rules of the game, with bouncing diamonds and orange clouds, and the tiny melodeons in the back of the truck, honking out a seamless tune, and the pegs in the player piano, mindlessly played, nevertheless seductive, make a tune worth singing. The sun peeked out with its single eye behind a slate blue triangle. When I loved you, mine eye too was single, the heart of this, or the sovereign part of me beaming. I could pretend I lived in the Arconia, a building with a doorman, and that the piano played only the notes I chose for it. Sometimes I fell upon my enemies with lust. Sometimes I brought them oysters and venison. Sometimes I pulled an ochre rope and started the whole thing all over again. Oh, this is my last poem. Thank you for listening. It's called Skyhammer. I took my skyhammer and pounded out a few choice clouds, cirrus and, I don't know, nimbus, as in a god on earth, moving in space in a great auroral mist, a god who beholds the sparrows washing in the dusty gravel of Frankfurt Avenue, giving me cause to rant or giving me means to roll. Ride with me in the shadowy afterworld, beyond the spider of a doubt. Along a sidewalk littered with leaves. Don't be plain, said the cloud. Find the ornament that please you best, or elsewise, sugared in stars, go on and rail in a useless manner against the inevitable dawn time. People of the dawn, come up drumming, and beat on a pillow even if a drum is not available. Happy fortune, fortune has come round for you again, in this pocket world of a minor horned god. I balanced my lunch in the arms of my ancestors. Tom-cord grapes and weeping cherries. They were my arms, lackadaisic in the sky, 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 holding their sky hammer as if it were the baby Buddha. But really, I want to be honest. I was in a rose garden with no roses in an outhouse called the Royal Flush. And I thought, if there was a world beyond, I could become one of those assholes who gets their sugar from fruit and regard the one who points out my faults as a revealer of treasures, and regard the one who points out my faults as a revealer of treasures. Thank you.
Sorry, just getting our situation back. Thank you so much. That was really wonderful.
It was powerful, Julian. Wow. Wow, Julian.
Thanks, Roberto.
Beautiful.
And so many good connections to the show coming up. Like that Joy Harjo came up, and Lewis asked me to say something about the show. I don't really know. It's up through the end of the month. If anyone wants to come see it, it's co-curated with Shanna Ketchum, Heap of Birds, and yeah, we don't have any more live programs for the show, but yeah, as mentioned, we're working on this catalog, and so excited that you both will have offered a poem to include. And Lewis?
No, I don't know. I just want to say thank you. That was so beautiful. Yeah, that was really, really beautiful to hear those poems. Yeah, thank you, Julian. Thank you, Roberto. Thank you, guys, for being here.
And thanks for all who watch online. Okay. I'm gonna stop this stream just so we're not broadcasting. And